Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Tonight I want to welcome Adrian Boniardi. He is author of Kiss Your Fears Goodbye, Transforming Your Fears into Adventures and Possibilities, and the founder and creator of Meditar, Underwater Meditation. He is a professional diver at heart with more than half of his life under the surface. He invites us to remember our true essence, our real non-physical identity that connects us all as spiritual, sentient beings, sharing a temporary human experience here on planet Earth. Adrian, welcome. How are you doing tonight?
Hi, Chris. Thank you very much. Good. All good.
Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, yeah, you're welcome, and thank you for joining us. This is going to be a fascinating show because, for one, I've never really been able to clear my mind enough to properly meditate. My mind's always moving a million miles an hour, and I watched the introduction video on your website about the underwater meditation. It looks very relaxing, and it actually looks like it's something that I would actually be able to clear my mind just because there's no outside interruptions. It's fascinating. But first, tell us about yourself, tell us about your background, and what got you started down this path.
Like the little bio you share, I've been a diver my whole life though. I grew up watching Jacques Cousteau, The Underwater World in black and white when I was little. My grandparents began giving me like fins and mask for Christmas and birthday. So I got in the water very early age. When I turned 20, I became a certified scuba diver. I got very passionate about it. I continued studying. I became the instructor. Got my own scuba diving school in Argentina. I began teaching mix. With that thrive, it came the realization that as I was going, it was not going to be enough. And then I got into commercial diving and stuff. So that was in Florida. I've been a diver my whole life. I have spent during training years hundreds of hours underwater trying to extend my apnea underwater, be able to remain without breathing and such. But I was not spiritual. I am born and raised Catholic from the Italian family, but I never was into it either. I did my prepper school in a big Catholic school, having religion classes once a week, the same time like math and every other, but I never bought it. When I was on my early 20s, I came across a situation with the church that we used to go with the family, and I pulled away from everything related with religion in every way. Then back in 2006, 2007, something happened to me emotionally, and I got very depressed. I got very mad, and little by little, I began to ask deeper questions. Trying to lift myself up, I began to meditate. Learning how to meditate, I went to the study group. I began to get into the spirituality and consciousness and trying to understand a little bit more what that was going through. Not everything was making sense in my life at the time. So I was in a time of my life very confusing. I was working as a diver, as a commercial diver in Miami, Florida. I was going basically from work and back home to read and study, then meditate. So there were 4 or 5 years that I removed the TV from my place in Miami back in those days. And I got very deep studying a little of what we don't know, what makes you think. Um, I was very depressed in those days, and I still having to work underwater. One of those days at work, I one of those very depressing days, I was underwater, under a boat, cleaning the bottom of the boat. I locked myself with my legs with the rudder and my arms around the shaft and the propeller, while my coworker was at the another area of the boat, and I just closed my eyes. I have some tools on my hand, and I let them go to the bottom near me, and I closed my eyes and I began to meditate underwater. And few seconds after that, and this is the weirdest thing to me because I had never before. I was very skeptic, so I hear, are you enjoying this? Do you think other people would enjoy it too? Only that. And I thought I was losing my mind. I began looking around me to see where was that coming from, and eventually that became explored that every
Adrian,
opportunity that I
you
had.
froze up for a minute there.
Oh, what
Yeah,
is it? What is the last part that you got?
that you were just saying, you were telling us about the experience you had when you started to meditate underwater whenever you dropped your tools.
Okay, and I hear on my head, are you enjoying this? Do you think other people would enjoy it too? And at that moment, at that time, that was the freakiest thing I could have ever experienced because I never had anything related to it. Um, I I thought I was losing my mind, and because of it, I began to research deeper what was happening to me, what I meant, and that was mostly the beginning of what became the underwater meditation. When I please, Chris, stop me anytime you want. Um,
Yeah,
that
no,
time,
go ahead and
okay.
finish your story.
At that time, I was living in Miami Beach. I was single. I was by myself on my apartment. And once I began to conceptualize this idea a little bit more, and not knowing anything about businesses, I was basically raised to be an employee back in those days, and I never gave a second thought to it. Um, so I began to wonder, how can I promote this? How can I market this? It is a tricky concept. It requires certain background experience, and it was something very new to me. And I thought, well, maybe a movie, something that shows to larger audiences something related with it. And I forgot about it. That thought was on that moment, and it died there. Um, some few years after that, I met what is now my wife. She's born and raised in LA, in California. Eventually, after we get married in Miami, we moved to LA because she has family here, and I was a single guy in Miami. Eventually, things developed in Los Angeles in a certain way that I totally not expected at all. I end up getting into the entertainment industry out of the blue. Something that I have never before conceived or imagined such possibility. Just as a background actor, extra, but I got so excited I got so hooked for the industry and the potential of it that I write a short film with a short story that I created. We shoot it after a couple years of a process, and the short that it took a weird turn um, gave me the tip to develop the whole story, because the little 10 pages that I wrote were just a piece of a bigger story, that it has many factors into it, and one of those aspects, it totally fit into the storyline, the underwater meditation part. But this that I am sharing with you so quickly, it was inconceivable to me at some point, simply because there was no background behind it. There was I was literally building castles in the air, and is from my own curiosity, to begin to become aware of all these little details, I continue researching and learning more. The 2012 Mayan prophecies come into play. In the middle of all this, I was still in Florida back then, and the factor of on my own research, just following the path, trying to understand more about underwater meditation and what I was experiencing, that I can share more with you about it, with it, through it, because I had the advantage of that I was underwater every day for several hours a day, so I have plenty of opportunity to test, because my other skepticism drive me to test. Okay, I think I'm going rapid
No,
circles.
that's okay. So you tested this out. You wanted to find out how far you could take it and what are the possibilities, with what you're finding. I want to go back for a second, because
Sure.
you said that you heard a voice that said, are you enjoying this? Do you think others would enjoy this? Now that's fascinating, because, did you know what type of entity you were contacted by? Did you ever find that out anytime in the future?
Um, at that moment, because of my background, I believe it was God. That was the only thing that I could think of, because of my upbringing. Um, I, I didn't really thought about it. I guess now it could be our own higher self, our own higher consciousness. I wouldn't point it out to an entity at this point. It feels like it was my higher self answering what I was asking, basically.
Yes, that's fascinating, because I had that thought as well. And the fact that you went there, yes, your higher self. I've heard, I had a guest on, John D'Souza, who wrote a book called Clear Hearers, and it's about that, the fact that he doesn't know where this comes from, but it's like a prophetic voice that kind of guides you on your path, that talks to you every once in a while, and you can get clearer messages at times through meditation.
Yeah, the tricky part that is confusing is that human logic is just human logic, and that is one of the difficult aspects that I came across, and it is so easy to mistake and confuse, because sometimes what we are called to do makes no sense for our logic. If I only tell you, you go to such and such corner and do this and build it, and they will come. You can put it in that regard. And I also, one of in those depressing times, I got to work with a coworker that I have worked in the past, both divers, and that I hadn't worked in several years. And long story short, he told me, I know that you're going through a hard time. Do you read? At that moment, I was in the nothing to lose stage. And I said, yeah, I haven't read it in years, but sure, whatever. Okay, I'm going to go by your house and I'm going to hand you a book that somebody else gave me that you might like it right now. Sure. The first paragraph that I read when I opened that book, he came by later on that same day, was, do you really want an answer to all these questions, or are you just venting? That is the first paragraph on Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. Coming from the religious Catholic background that I came from, that book resonated strongly with me. And going through the subject that it goes through, and later on, The Secret came out back in 06. So that added the quantum physics aspect to it, and I motivated him to do more research, plus the spiritual side with the Cartoli and Wayne Dyer and those guys. So my background to what we are getting into is purely spiritual. What I was mentioning earlier in 2012, where the Mayan prophecies came to, and everybody was preparing for the end of the world, with Hollywood ahead with the movie and stuff. I got tired to hear what everybody was talking about it, and I decided to get the subject in my own hands, since I was already doing research on my own to find out what were the Mayan prophecies really about. My head exploded when I began digging into ancient civilizations and cultures, and I began to learn that several of them, if not all of them, speak about people coming from the sky. You see, I started with something purely spiritual in consciousness and coherent meditation, and now I began looking into aliens, and the aliens brought the Akashic records, and the Akashic record was all in the mix. And my main trigger to it was a relationship going sour. And in the middle of the beginning of my research, that I began to learn about past lives and reincarnation, subject that I was a true alien to, and wanting to test what I was receiving, I began to ask very deeply in almost my dream state, or that stage where we are about to fall asleep at night. Who was she for this person? Why all this? I wanted to understand. I wanted to understand. Um, well, that was open Pandora's box because the answers began to come while I was underwater, and stuff that it sounds totally crazy. And I'm gonna share it with you, but it's still gonna sound totally crazy. I was working still. I was going to my job. I was a diver working in Miami Beach, so I was underwater every day. And as I was getting some insight, and you feel it in your body when you do, um, I wanted to know more. And so I began to remember aspect of lifetimes. I don't know how to say it. Um, Episodes, flashes, being underwater with my scraper in my hand, trying to do the job that I was supposed to, and a flash in my mind eye with a scene that we could say from a movie, but you know that it's not a movie. Um, and I began to remember ex-wives from other times, and it is tricky because your conscious mind is still there, and it tell you you are crazy, but it's still you have the awareness. And so basically, I do not know what, and I don't know if you read a little bit over the website. That's also what I say there. I don't know what happened when we are underwater. Probably something that it might eventually to deserve a little further scientific research to see what is the relationship between weightlessness, because that's the one of the main differences that happens with meditation in your chair or in bed was my favorite way to meditate, laying down in bed. But or you get distracted, like you begin speaking at first that you just cannot clear your mind with happens, uh, or you get so relaxed, so focused, so concentrated that you are 5-10 minutes into the meditation and you fall asleep, you pass out. So neither of those things happen underwater. You don't fall asleep and you don't get distracted because there's almost no noise other than you're breathing through the regulator, which makes easier to focus into something, since one of the main elements suggested for traditional meditation was to focus in your breathing in the space between the inhale and the exhale. Um, that's much easier to do than underwater. And we are weightlessness. The any way that we are sitting, like now we are, or laying down, we have the natural gravity, block pressure over our body. I feel it on my butt. I feel it on my back against the seat. Nothing of that happens underwater. So it really feels when the temperature is correct and all the elements are correct that you have no body anymore. So it gets you a very ideal environment to relax, and following the proper procedure, quote unquote. Uh, it's like you open a door, and when you tune yourself around consciousness on that frequency, and I feel it literally like a radio frequency, the door remains open. So even if you're not underwater, the insights don't stop. At least they didn't to me, and can can be tricky because sometimes you are at the bank waiting in line to make a deposit, or at the store, and you are with your mind wondering while you are there waiting, and you get an insight, and it's a deep insight that you feel the truth of it, and you are in public. So, but there is something that very big. Um, I've been a diver my whole life, and I have countless hours trying to relax underwater, laying in the bottom of the pool, but I had no spiritual background. So I guess we have to ask. Uh, I never have any spiritual insight of any kind, any nothing, and I can hear any diver, any diver, because that would be me if the case were the opposite. What the hell are you talking about? I've been a diver all over the world, and I never felt anything of what are you talking about? Yeah, I know, me too.
So it's the combination of the spirituality and the meditation. And it makes me really want to try this, because it seems like it would give you just such a head start to an out-of-body experience, not feeling your body as is. It's just like, we get you there really quick, it seemed like.
Yes, and continuing with my research, of course, I got to the subject of past lives. I met Dr. Brian Weiss, who worked in Miami at one point. He's one of the eminence on past lives, and continue digging further. And I got into astral projections, and very recently, totally randomly, the subject of remote viewing came very strongly to me, and I began to learn that they also have a very specific procedure, and I got very deeply into ET, and I got a lot of memories from that too, and it's weird because our it's not that we get rid of our critical thinking mind. It's there, and it feels like it is a little midget on our shoulder talking shit to us. Beep, talking crap to us, and it can make you a little uncomfortable with, like, everybody that speak about this type of stuff. I created a few online events few years back, and I interviewed several other people because I got more curious in learning. Brian Forrester with his The Elongated Skulls, people from the in between lifetimes. ET, I got the pleasure to meet Paula Harris for a couple of days. I was hanging out with her, and she got stunned when I mentioned to her the underwater meditation part. The thing that blocked me with that was that when I moved from Miami to Los Angeles, I had to stop with whatever I was working and store the whole concept of underwater meditation on a shelf. I pulled down the website that I had back then in Florida, and I didn't do anything for 5 or 6 years while I was in LA about that, because I didn't know anybody. I knew what was the next step, which was the video that you watch, but that I have no money, I have no knowledge of people. And then how things began to be guided and getting into the Hollywood industry is something that I would been always very shy. I would have never imagined that I would, and get so excited into it. And now I'm writing the script for the movie that I imagined 8 years ago, totally out of the blue. And of course, well, it is in the middle of everything because together with remembering people, I got other memories that were even stranger. And I have talked with a lot of people. A lot of people reach me privately through Facebook because I am connected with bad people for a while. And one morning I woke up this after recently moved to LA, and I woke up with a mark under my arm. And yeah, I talk with abductees and contactees, and they understand it, but I'm sharing this with you, and I'm sweating because this is insane.
My audience is quite used to this, so
I know,
it's normal for us.
I know. So in 11 years time period, I went through a total and complete transformation, and unexpectedly. And when I did the video that is in the website with Christina, she's one of the actors that participated on the short film that I did. She's British. She had no diving experience, no water experience at all. Was that little video it took a few hours to do, and the testimony that she gave in the jacuzzi at the end, it was very emotional because it was not the script at all, and she wasn't expecting it. And that is that is the feedback that I receive from everybody. The 10 people, maybe friends and the acquaintances that I, in any given opportunity that I had a scuba tank and a swimming pool, I invite them to share it, and I see the potential for it. And now my challenge is gonna be to find a way to share it with people. And it wasn't this that I accepted this chat with you, but to show that it can be a real vehicle for improvement, for to begin thinking a little bit deeper about us, because that's ultimately the message. Once we know, and we know that we know, anybody, no criticism or skepticism from somebody that is not in our head has any weight anymore. It is strange to arrive to that type of insight, but it moves you, it prepares you, and it gives you a sense of confidence in you that you've been here before, maybe not however why, and you'll be here later, whether it's still here or someplace else. But our identity is more than this human body, though.
Now, I want to talk more about the benefits, but first, I would like to hear about what this extraterrestrial connection is. At least, what was it for you? Did you ever find out more about these extraterrestrial experiences?
Yeah, I guess you could call it that way, simply because I don't think it had nothing to do with humans. You brought me the memory with this question about the Akashic records. I had never heard about such thing. One day I was about to jump in the water. There was a very special morning because I got a very big insight that almost made me cry at home before leaving to work. Uh, what is now, my wife was visiting my place in the Miami from California on that morning, and she witnessed the whole thing. So when I leave home, I go to work to Key Biscayne, Marina in Key Biscayne. I jump in the water and I got struck by a thunder in my head, and that's the only way that I can describe it. I grabbed myself from the boat, and I don't know. I was I I don't understand it. I can only share it. It seemed like I tune in with a universal radio. That's the only way that I can put it. That radio, you can call it, it transmits 24/7, 365 days a year. And it's just universal insight. That's the only way that I can put it. Downloads. It is you, but it is not you. And the weird part is that it seems like we have no conscious control into it. Remember the movie Paul?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Remember that scene in the bus where Paul wants to share with one of the guys.
Yes, and he touches.
He touches him. He got that flash of the information, whatever.
Right, the massive download. Yeah.
Well, he feels something like that. And it does change you, though. Your perception of where we are, why we do what we do, why we go to work, the implications of the relationship, the people that interact in life, the nasty coworker, the upset neighbor, the supermarket. It gives you understanding probably into stuff that we've seen and maybe not fully understand, like from the movie The Matrix. That transit of seeing the real world is a metaphor, yes, but it's a very accurate metaphor. Our perception changes, and we open to listen and to look into stuff that it might have been unthought before that moment.
Now, is there any danger involved in this? Should people exercise any caution?
I guess, like with everything, starts low. I was reading something the other day, and somebody mentioned a caution about meditation, something that I would have not thought before, and something that you do in your chair or you do it on your bed, lay down. What could be any danger on that? And then I realized that some of those insights that we call, nobody else does it. It seems like there's a pretty specific barrier, obstacle between our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. Because in the same way, a trauma from this lifetime, from the childhood moment, can triggers in a negative way, that could be a caution, not a danger, but a caution. And the concept of cognitive dissonance, it comes to mind, because yes, it's very reconforting to remember who we were, our identity, where we were, how did we die, perhaps. And it is very special. Yes, and it can be triggering in some way too, simply because it is so against to everything that we learn growing up, everything from the programming that we all receive from mainstream, all that we know now that we are beginning to see and discover that was all not exactly true. So coming to terms with this is the real world, Neo. Morpheus shared with Neo so different to what we believe. It can take a little while to accustom, and we need to be ready for what we ask, basically.
So, talk about some of the other benefits that one might get out of underwater meditation.
I guess the most valuable benefit is our own realization about our own identity, losing completely the fear of death. That doesn't mean that you want to die, but you're not afraid of it anymore. It gives you a deeper sense of a purpose, and perhaps even allows you to create a purpose if you don't made already one, because it gives you a bit of insight that if we are here enduring everything that we go through through our lives, and we were here before, and we are remembering people that we know today that were there too. There's much more to this life, and I think the deeper sense of meaning, that void or longing that many times we feel, whether we have a family or not, a deeper longing for something that we can point out. It is much easier to understand. And the realization of that, how it connects with everything else. And it could be a little conflicted with the conflict that we see today in our planet, though, because those insights, it gives you a much clearer solution for troubles that we are dealing with today. And the solution is denied by money for the most part. And the solutions are there, but the current system on that we have, that other humans have created on this planet, are lying around the solution. So it gives you a very full awareness of our reality and how much of a big conspiracy our whole planetary reality really is.
Oh, definitely.
That's
I
all I'm
mean,
saying.
the powers in control, they're doing everything to prevent us from finding out about our true selves and what consciousness is and the powers of consciousness. Now, I found it fascinating that you were talking about accessing the Akashic records. Now, this has always been fascinating to me. I'm wondering if it's just a field of energy that's always there, and by certain forms of meditation we can just access these different fields of energy that are always around us.
Yes, it seems like they are there. Is the trick is to be able to attune to their frequency, and it is doable. It does take practice because the distractions are there, the noises are there. I started meditating on my bed. I never knew anything what meditation was about. I never knew the word even meditation. I began to learn it along the way. And yes, it takes you. You need to want to know bad enough, bad enough. And like I said, at that initial time of my life, I was very upset. I was in my late 30s, and I felt that I was nowhere, and I didn't know where I was going, and I had no direction, uh, like about in the middle of the ocean, and it gives you, it sets you in uh, when it's feelings. It's hard to put into words because it's just feelings. It's ideas in your head mixed with feelings, and some of them are very deep that move you very deeply, or almost to the point of like tears. Though it is very compelling. The the visions that you get. It is like being there. At one point, I was getting deeper into uh, 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 trying to reach other consciousness. Let's say that way. Um, and I got this was still living in Florida, and I had a vision on that uh, uh, sleep awake state. I saw four faces on top of me that morning, just looking at me like that down. That morning, I woke up and I told my girlfriend, which is now my wife, um, I received that we have to create something like an embassy to introduce them to humanity. And apparently, somebody that I know, I'm not going to say his name, just do not bring it up, but somebody that I know from, say, from Facebook, very also deep into the UFO subject, had a very similar ideas since that morning he was creating a Facebook page about a DT center. It was the freakiest thing to me at that moment to see it, because I had that same idea, and I even was moved to drive to a specific location in South Beach, in Miami Beach, a very specific location by the Intracoastal, where I was expecting that I was going to find something there. Uh, we were dating very recently with my girlfriend at that time, so it was very weird for me to look and tell her, "Let's go here," because I know we have to do that. And I I didn't find anything at that exact location, but less than a block away on the next following street on Collins, there was a construction site, and there was I took a picture. I have to look it up, and I can send it to you at a later time. A red tarp covering the construction site that read the Adriano with an O added to the end of my name. Wants to be here, something like that. What was the freakiest thing to me? The insights don't stop. If you pull yourself a little bit away from it, they diminish. But once you know how to knock on that door, the process becomes much easier, and it is you are more closer to the frequency to connect. But then the contrast comes into play, and we are almost the whole time with a reality, and that takes you a little bit out of that. It's like we need to isolate a little bit of negativity, because that takes off that lighter frequency that allows you to receive those messages. It is a moral question now: is do we continue allowing the crap to continue going on, or do we lower a little bit of vibration and we do something about that? Yes, I can become a master of my spirit, but I cannot. They have that we need to lead them continue doing whatever they are doing, because I cannot be at both places at the same time. And we come to our own place to answer that question for ourselves. What do we do?
Yeah, very well said. Now we can go a few extra minutes because if you
Sure,
have time.
sure.
So I just have a couple other questions.
Sure.
If people want to become involved in this and they want to learn, the best ways to do underwater meditation, how can they get started?
I am planning to do. I am behind the schedule big time. I was going to do something in October, but we have to move with the family to Washington State. So I'm away from California for a little while. But I'm still planning to do a opening event around March or April in LA. Please go to the website underwatermeditation.org. Subscribe. That's the best way to be informed when the event is going to be. I would like to do two separate. One with some people that I know. One, I want to continue testing it, because I like to see if there's any difference with a experienced meditator. One day coming out of the supermarket in LA, I see a monk. There was a Asian man with the orange monk outfit, and I stopped him and I began speaking with him, and I went to find out more about the underwater meditation. So I like to also invite people that I know that have been meditating much longer than I have, to see what feedback do they have underwater. So I am planning doing a event for the public around March or April in LA. The groups are very small because the situations are very special, and it has to be very peaceful, very quiet. So the groups are very small, of 5 or 6 people at the top. I'd rather do it in different dates, small groups than bigger groups. So anybody that feels the curiosity, it would be very rare of somebody experiencing anything the first time. Have you ever breathed underwater with a regulator in your life?
No, I haven't personally.
That mere thing of being able to breathe underwater for the first itself, it is a combination of stuff. That's what I'm referring to. It triggers something, though. That's all I can think of. We were born in our mother's womb in a liquid. I feel that goes to that stage, though. It brings our consciousness back to those moments. That's why we're able to recall so much of our past. Even though we know that time doesn't exist, and everything happens at once, maybe that would explain it better. Maybe that's how we're able to connect with those other us. There's more to know about it. I would love for everybody to try it, because I know the difference that it does. It did it for everybody, even in the first of the time. Got Christina crying, and that wasn't played. That was expected, and I got the same reaction from everybody. Only that feeling is what has kept me with this concept in my head, not doing anything about it for 5 or 6 years. Now, finally, the website, a brand new website, is back up. I was able to do the video to show a little bit more how does it look from the outside, because underwater meditation, what are you talking about? Okay, this is how it looked from the outside. And like I said, in the website, I can show you how it looked from the outside, not what happens within the person while they are underwater. But I know, and I'm super excited to be able to share this with people, especially with people from your audience, because regular people will have a lot of more boundaries, a lot more mental obstacles and limiting beliefs and all the stuff that we are a little bit over those details.
Now, something I noticed as you were telling your story is it seems that after you started experimenting with this, that you had a lot of synchronicities in your life that just led you further along this same path. I mean, you were looking for somebody to, professional meditator to say, and you ran into a monk. I mean, just things like that, you know, it's amazing.
Yeah. I had to fight my own limitations, my own disbelief, because I always consider myself very left-brainer, very logical, very Spock. This is a pen, and don't tell me anything else about it. And it was difficult for me in that realm to challenge myself to, and this is why I still wanted to continue testing it. I became a sponge, trying to learn more about it, and it opens a whole aspect of a reality that gives us a very different approach to the drama and doom that we hear today, the money issues, the bill paying, and regular day-to-day life, basically.
Yes, that is definitely fascinating, and I'm gonna have to have you back on once you have more developments with your site and with this water meditation, definitely. And Adrian, thank you so much for coming on. That was fascinating stuff, and we'll definitely have you back
Thank you,
on
Chris.
soon.
Thank you so much for having me.